Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning. I don't know where my co-host went.
Good morning.
It's weird on me.
Good morning. I was jamming. I didn't know that I had turned my video off.
I was like, Kate.
Where are you? No, I was here.
So good morning, everyone. I was like, Kate, I can't talk to you right now. Where are you?
So sorry.
Oh,
well, good morning, badass.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Well, Kate, I'm super excited about today's topic. And so here in a minute, we're going to be bringing on Thomas LaMay, and we're going to be talking about men's mental health and specifically in the construction industry. And so before we do that, of course, we want to hear from everyone. So let us know you're here. Just give us a comment. And if you are new, then of course, be sure to add in a white heart to let us know that you are new. And so, all right, we're starting off with Bruce. He said, let's get our badass on.
Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning,
Thank
Bruce.
you.
And so Bruce and I are going to be actually going immediately after this to another topic. So it's actually helping people on boundary setting. So Jesse, who we had on previously through bungee jumpers, he's actually going to be coming, helping people going through a workshop. And so I've actually invited people within our company to join. So I'm not sure how many people are going to be joining us. So that should be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the emotional bungee jumpers, right?
It is. Yeah. So it's on boundary setting. Yep.
Cool. Okay. Good morning, Renee. Good morning, Jody. How are you guys? And it looks like your mom's here.
Ah. Hey, good morning, Renee. And so, Mom, it looks like you just got to go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. I don't know why sometimes it gets rid of it on Facebook, and you just have to reauthorize.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
So
we're super excited about today's topic because obviously it's super relevant for us being in the architecture and engineering and construction industry, but something that, in general, for all the men that we have in our lives, men's mental health is not necessarily, the easiest topic to be talking about in a regular scope. And then once we expose you all to how bad it is in the construction industry, we're hoping to really get you thinking this morning.
Exactly. And so, hey, we have Dan joining us today. So welcome, Dan. He says, hey. And I don't know, Dan, have you been on before, or are you a white heart this morning? And so let us know. And then we have Adam Hoots. He's joining us. Good morning, y'all. And so I interact with Adam, a part of the No BS tribe. And so I'm so glad that he is joining us today as well. And so, Kate, should we get started and have Thomas introduce himself? Let's go ahead and do that real quick. And let's drag you over. There you go. Good morning, Thomas.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Doing excellent.
Awesome. Well, Thomas, a couple of quick things. So Thomas is in the Atlanta area, as well as me. So we're dealing with a little bit of non-sunshine today.
Yes.
And then additionally, one of the other things that I figured out is I'll let Thomas introduce himself, but the company he is with, actually, when I started in the AEC industry, it was Hardin Construction. And that is actually the company that he is with now, which they actually acquired. So, Thomas, if you want to start just giving us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and what it is that you do.
I'm in the building right now.
Awesome.
So my name's Thomas LaMay, as previously mentioned. I work for DPR Construction. I'm the quality leader for the Southeast region. And I like that job because I get to get into everything. So design, from like executing work in the field, from planning to budgeting to scheduling to safety to all kinds of like technology in our VDC department. There's really no limit to what I can get into. In fact, I'm encouraged to kind of turn over the stones and really dive into stuff. And then really what I'm really interested in is really continuous improvement. Just always never sitting on your laurels, never kicking back and be like, hey, we're doing so great. We're the most awesomest company in the world. We're constantly trying to try new things and change. And that's that C word we're all sometimes get afraid of. But I get to help lead that out here, and then I also get to mentor and lead an awesome group of people who I get to work with who are already in the No BS tribe as well. So, and I'm going to point them here. So today is also my White Heart Day.
Yes. That's awesome. Well, you're definitely speaking mine and Kate's language, because we have to deal with change daily within what we do. So we're both in the software side of the house. So people don't want to change. And so, we very much understand that particular topic.
Yeah. And I love that you get that you're really encouraged to kind of take your quality role to the streets, right? I mean, so you can't be helping to improve your organization quality output if you're not literally touching all of the areas you're touching. So
that's right.
That's super cool, and I'm glad you love it, because it takes a special person to be able to be, that wide, yet deep, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well,
it's very true. Yeah.
I do have someone I'm going to say that says good morning, rock stars. And she also added that you were one of her industry heroes. Did you know that?
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. I remember I was in a conference and we were like, hey, that's Jennifer Lacey over there. We should go talk to her. And I was like, nah, she doesn't want to talk to us. She's too famous. So since then, I've really appreciated getting to know Jennifer. So thank you.
That's great. Well, awesome. Today, as we mentioned, we're going to be talking about men's mental health, and specifically in the construction industry. So to start off the topic, can you go over some of the stats to help people gain a better understanding and sort of why this is important? And we were going over some of the stats earlier. And so maybe starting off with, let's start with how many people across the United States, and the stats are United States, correct? CDC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How many men commit suicide each year? So give us that number.
So CDC right here in Atlanta, they study, they get a lot of medical records, so they go through this. So this is probably one of the best sources of information. And it's only in the United States. So let's clarify. So if you're outside of the United States, it might be different for you, but here in the US, it's a major problem. And in 2022, the most recent year that they've published this data, 49,449 people died by suicide. That's almost 50,000 people. And then if you do the spread against male to female, it's 39,000 of those people were male. So this is almost a entirely male dominated problem. Now, certainly 10,000 females were also included in that statistics, and that's all of those are unfortunate. And if you've ever been associated with someone who has taken, who has died by suicide, it's like you start asking all these questions. So it's like, that number is not the only number. It spreads. There's family, there's friends, there's coworkers, right? So this issue, it is massive. Yeah. And that's just in the United States. Right. So if you look at the most recent published data where they actually kind of studied those people's occupation, and it's a little bit skewed, but because they kind of jumble it up, but it's 49 people per 100,000. Let's roughly say it's 49 people
Mm-hmm.
per 100,000. And then if you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there is where they get everybody's pay stub. So they have the statistics. And my favorite person, W. Edwards Deming, used to head up that department, a famous quality person. But it is 49 people. So if you do the math, 79 times 49, that's 3,800 people.
Yeah.
So if you go back to the overall, do you want to say the stat?
Yeah, so it ended up calculating of the men, so about 40,000 men die a year. And
4,000.
Well, sorry, 40,000 of all the United States. And then of that, almost 4,000 men. So men make up about 10% of the stat that are in the construction industry are 10% of all that number. Now, Thomas, what percentage does the construction industry make up of all occupations?
But just about 2% of all the people who live in the United States. 2% of those people work in construction. So that's a staggering number.
Right. So that's so skewed.
You're 5 times more likely to die by suicide if you work in construction than if you do anything else, including the military. And that's also a very staggering statistic that we need to study. This is an issue. So my thing is, like, you can't say that, hey, there's a labor shortage in the construction industry on one hand, and then also not talk about this mental health crisis. It is a crisis.
Yeah, I mean, it's a retention issue.
I know.
And on top of a humane issue, it's also, significant. You're right, Thomas. You can't say, oh, we need so many more people in the construction industry, but we're not going to give all of them access to healthcare, and we're also not going to address the staggering issue that we have on the other side.
Right.
That these people aren't coming out of the industry potentially.
So we definitely are. I would say, especially in the last 2 years, kind of coming out of the pandemic, and really starting to address this in a big way. And there are industry groups, and then a company I work for, DPR, and many others. I've worked for other companies who are also kind of on this same path. It's like this. We need to confront this, and we can't confront it with the same level of energy that we did previously in previous years.
Right.
We have to spend more money. We have to give more resources. We have to give more things than we actually did the previous year, because that's the level of effort it'll take to overcome it. And one thing I'm really kind of passionate about is, like, understanding that some of these stresses or barriers to go seek help, they're kind of systematic to two things. To people in construction industry, it's a systematic thing, meaning, like, you get put in a system, and it's hard to escape that system, just because that's just the way it is. So number one, and number two, since this is such a male populated problem, male traits also start to trickle in, and we have to recognize those. What do you think about that?
Well, I know that this was something that the reason that this is passionate for you is because you have gone through some things previously as well. And so maybe if you could touch upon some of the reasons why you're so passionate about this particular topic, and maybe was there an aha moment that sort of led you down the path of being so passionate about it?
Yes, and I blame Jennifer Lacey. And I also thank her. And I've said this publicly before, and I continue to say this because I suffer, and it is suffering, by the way. It's not like being annoyed or like being uncomfortable. I suffer from acute anxiety. That means I have to actually have treatment and medication to really just, it's not overcome anxiety. It's just, you have to treat it. It's like anything else. It's like high blood pressure or those kind of things. And so through that therapy, I've learned to understand my own triggers But here's the thing: before I went and sought professional help and got medication and got therapy and did all that kind of stuff, I had to like have acute panic attacks. And here's the thing: I would have these panic attacks at work, and I would go and hide. I would go hide in like a stairwell or a small room, or just away from people. I would literally be like, "Oh, I just was in the bathroom," and I would. For me, my way of having a panic attack is holding my breath. Some people like hyperventilate, but I will hold my breath. The problem with holding your breath in your brain is the brain can't get oxygen, and so you're having a actual medical event that you need to seek help for. It's like having something clogged in your trachea and you can't breathe. So you actually like lose oxygen to your brain, and it's a serious event. And if you do it a lot over time and it's untreated, the outcomes get very ugly. They get very ugly. And for me, my first source of like refuge was all kinds of controlling behavior. So alcohol and kind of like distracting myself. And my distraction was also work, which is very prevalent, right? Because like some of these projects that we work on, no one's going to tell you to go home because they're so busy. And I worked on projects that ran for 3 shifts. So it runs for 24 hours a day. So not only was it like no one's going to say no, they were like, damn, this guy's a hard worker. He's getting after it, like getting some production done. But at the same time, I not even knowing what was happening, that I was damaging my own body and my own brain just by not seeking help, and then not getting it. And then also, like, when you got the therapy, you actually have to like go and like pay attention and do the breathing exercises. I'll quickly give the Jennifer Lacey story. So she was last year, they were having her and Jess Hernandez were doing a regular live stream, kind of like this one, where they would say they were talking about some of these things. And one of the things I kind of like quickly realized was, when I was also kind of thinking about this, was like all of this male masculinity, all these traits, so strength and assertiveness and like being a leader, like these are ideals. And also that in the construction industry, you're dirty, you don't work in really good ergonomic positions, you're in the elements, you work at height, you work on edges. It's dangerous work. It's very risky work. And I was like having this conversation with my better half, Angeline, and she was like, do you think those traits and those things were the reason why you got into construction? It was like, and I was like, oh my God, yes. What are you kidding me? Like that, exactly, for those reasons. Right. And I tried to link it back to, I really was like, tried to really study. And I pulled up 3 case studies. And for me, this is only me, and it's arguably, but there's 3 famous photographs of construction workers. And the first one we all know, it's the iron workers sitting on a beam at 30 Rockefeller Center right there in New York City, Bruce. And I've been in the building. It's really cool because it's a great scene because you look out and you see Central Park. And they're just having lunch on this beam, and they're so confident, but they're all, they're on a beam, probably 800 feet in the air. A very dangerous situation if you really think about it. The second one, and it's a 1942. It's taken by Robert Palmer, famous photographer. It's a carpenter working on the Douglas Dam, and he's wearing that skull guard, that full brim composite hard hat every carpenter wears. And it's like, you want to know the source code of that hard hat? It's a super famous photograph of this carpenter working on the Douglas Dam, Tennessee Valley Authority in 1942. This is World War II, right? This is probably contributing to the Manhattan Project. So if you're seeing the Oppenheimer film lately, this is probably contributing to that. So it's serious business. So, but that source is like, we celebrate those men, and we put their photos in museums. And they're not clean. They're not in good ergonomic positions. They're working at risk. They're like in grave peril if you really think about it. But that is also normal and acceptable. So when it's normal and acceptable and celebrated, that
to be in peril.
It gets driven in. And so if you kind of go into the psychology of it, of men and masculinity, that we are just programmed as men, and as in men in construction, like it's a double whammy, that we're less likely to even try to seek help because it's like not allowed. I guess it's a social taboo. And that if you do go seek help, or if you just are a little bit different because you don't wear that hard hat, that famous, that school guard hard hat, you're looked at as less than or different or weird. And as soon as you're looked at as less than or different or weird, you're looked at as a male, you're looked at as weak. And it gets, and then when you're looked at as weak, and then it just, all the shame starts to trickle right in, all of the doubt, all of your self-conscious. And when you start to live in that world for long periods of time, I think that really contributes. And that's just a one person and the industry. You can't blame the industry. I can't blame the gentlemen that were building 30 Rockefeller Center. This is a tremendous achievement. It's a beautiful building that's still standing today. But we do know better now of the symptoms, like holding your breath, going hiding in a closet, right? So if you recognize these systems, like, go seek help. So I really want to see that. And if you're having a serious acute issue, like if it's happening right now and you're having either ideation of suicide, or just trying to reach for another glass of whiskey to numb the previous day of all the BS you went through, you got to catch yourself in that moment and then try to change, and changing, and also working in a mental wellness kind of state. It's not easy. You need help. So thank you, Jennifer Lacey, for just nudging me right off the edge. And finally, I kind of recognize that, no, it's okay to be man. It's okay to be masculine. It's okay to have a diesel truck. I definitely drive one of those, but also acceptable to be super assertive with your personal health and wellness. And that means all of the things that you can do that's positive for your body and mind. Yoga, breathing exercises, working out, those kind of things, all really good things. But the thing about doing box breathing, and box breathing is a technique I use. It's where you only, if you're in a panic attack, you can really only focus, because my brain's going all over the place. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about this. If I really focus on just my breath, I can control that.
Yeah. Thomas, I'd like to break down a couple of the things that you've talked about. So some of the things that you mentioned were, when you think about construction, you think about men that are tough, men that are going to just be hard workers. So you talked about in the past that when you were dealing with this, you just continued to work. And then that was admired. It was something that then people started to admire. So I'm curious, when you think about the industry and they start to promote those types of things, like the overworking, the burning out, all of those types of things, how is it that the industry, what is it, the signs that they should really be looking at in construction workers to be able to help them, to be able to identify, these are the things that we should change, or these are the things that we should have our people sort of recognizing a part of the industry?
Oh man, this is what I get to do all day, every day. I get paid to do this. I can't believe it. But one thing that you can do, and it's free. It's free. If you're in a trailer right now, if you're working in an office, if you're going to work on Monday, you can give all of the information to everybody at the same.
Right.
So if you have a schedule, the schedule you show to the owner is the same schedule you show to the frontline workers. And that's why I'm a big proponent of what Jason Schroeder is doing with TACT, because all of the information that you actually need to plan your day including everybody else's plan, is all super visual. You can see it all in one look. If we have a 62-page schedule, you have to flip it, it's all confusing. And it's like, hey, you need to be here on this date because the schedule says it, but I'm not going to point to the actual line item. Like that behavior, we got to stop that. And we have to also, like, if there's like other kinds of information out there that we can really get to frontline workers, that means like, hey, this is going to happen, and not just like planning and scheduling, but like just like layout, like really clear directions on how things are going to be installed and those kind of things. And then also, this gets where I talk about, it's like really talking about expectation of the work. And it's not just like, hey, this needs to be done by tomorrow. This needs to be done correctly. And then it's a give and take. It's like, hey, if I want this bathroom to have really good grout lines, I can't rush it. It's a whole process. Like you have to set it, and this whole thing. This is just tile setting, but the idea is like, hey, I have to now include the person who is setting the tile into the conversation about the plan. So it's this collaboration process. So these are two things that cost no money. You don't have to hire a fancy consultant, although you eventually will need one. But you'll need some software to speed up the process as well. But we can't just use our mobile devices as weapons. We have to use those mobile devices to speed up the transfer of information. So that's just one we can do. And then the other thing is like that information doesn't just go one way. There's a feedback loop. And so that when we're out there, and I teach a second one that you can do, and it's free, I call it the hasty search. But you go out and you look at very specific things. You don't just sweep around and look for problems. You look for very specific things. And then once you notice a very specific thing, you do three things. First thing you do is you go and have a conversation. So you say, if you see something, this looks kind of interesting, I gotta go have a conversation. And if that conversation means, hey, there's a problem, then we have to be able to report that problem. And I'm not saying it's like a safety problem. It could be any kind of problem, but that being able to report, that means it'll go on a spreadsheet or a Power BI somewhere that, hey, there's a problem in this specific location and we have to address it. And then that problem goes back to the management, and it's the management's job. It's our job as either a general contractor or a designer to help solve that problem. And we have to go. So then the management goes to the problem instead of like the problem going to management, and we just cascade the blame. So those are two things that you can do, and it's absolutely free. And once you start doing that, you'll need some help. Yeah, go ahead.
And so what are some of the specific signs that you look for when you're identifying that someone might have issues with their mental health?
I already said it. It's hiding. This hiding behavior that we do.
Just the hiding?
Yes. And it's very prevalent. Every one of us who've worked in a high rise, we know the hiding, right? Because it's lots of rooms, lots of floors. So one thing we like to do is hey, if we have a plan of work and you see something, you're doing your hasty search, you see something that's, hey, this is an electrician, and this electrician is on the working deck. And it's like where the working deck where they're doing the rebar and the concrete work you don't necessarily need to be up there. We have to immediately question that. And a very I don't even want to tell this story, but was witness to a very serious accident where an electrician was in an area where he shouldn't have been, and it was super unfortunate. And then then I was like, all this blaming, like I could have saved this person from injury because of just being like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. So, but like it's not when you actually find that hiding behavior. You can't be like, you can't be here, or you lock people out. Like we start locking doors. We have to do the same thing. You have to go up and have that conversation. That conversation is, how are you doing? Or what's going on today? Those kind of things. Or tell me what you're working on. And if someone's having an acute mental like episode, you'll know instantly, because they will not act like a normal human being. In that instance, you now have to have the courage and the strength as males in construction, or even females in construction. Once you're confronted with that episode, you're in charge of this person, because they're not at full capacity, right? So you now have to find their help, and if that requires calling 911 and getting medical authorities there, then you absolutely do it 100%. And if calling 911 gets a blip on our safety record, and so what? So be it, right? I'd rather see that person go get the help than us saving money on our insurance premium, right? So yeah.
Do you think that is some of the reasons, or maybe why sometimes people may not seek out help? Maybe talking a little bit about why it is men, especially, may not actually want to seek out help.
It's I've talked about this before, but it's been studied, and it's men are more likely to seek help for problems they think are normal. So bad hips and knees. Oh, I tore my pectoral muscle working out. I got an ACL that I blew out when I was a football player, right? Those are pretty normal injuries for men. But it's been studied by psychologists that if men perceive that being depressed isn't normal, then they may feel dysfunctional. Be like, oh, I'm depressed. Right. And so instead of going and seeking help, they'll do like what I do: they'll go grab some amber liquid and try to drown it out and numb it out. So that normalization, it's been done before. I said this on Jesse Hernandez podcast. We've done normalization for men specific problems, and that's erectile dysfunction. Like, talk about the most private of private issues.
Right.
But Pfizer, who I guess they designed Viagra, they were noticing that it wasn't being prescribed. And we just hired somebody from Pfizer, and I'm just like, I want to just riff with them for hours about this. But that the doctor's like, you go to your doctor, you're in a room and it's the door shut, and it's like, and the doctor is legally obliged to not say anything to anybody. But even then, that issue was such a social taboo that no one was even talking about it with their doctor. So Pfizer began, and they spent millions of dollars. And I was saying, like, we have to have greater energy than we had previously. So they spent millions and millions of dollars in advertisements and got on the news and all kinds of things. And they've now made that little blue pill into a very normal subject that people can talk about, maybe not freely, but just a little bit. And I think if we keep talking about mental illness and mental wellness, especially in construction, and know the signs, like we know the signs of someone having a heart attack or stroke. We know those signs because even the CDC puts out pamphlets and information, and we have training here, and many of our industry companies do training for that acute, medical episode. But one thing we haven't done as much is talk about burnout. Talk about what are the signs of burnout, and like also how to overcome burnout. And it's like, it's not just going home and working from home, it's going home and turning off all of your devices and like distracting yourself so you don't like just sit there and spin on being away from work. That's just one example, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so even within our company, we actually created a chart to help us understand potential burnout. So for example, we evaluate, when is the last time the person took a vacation? Does the person have a vacation planned? And then how many hours has this person been working on average over the past, several weeks? So it helps you to understand, is someone potentially being burnt out? And I think that, your point about the Viagra is a huge and important topic, that if we don't normalize things, and I still even find this sometimes, even with, like, for example, my father-in-law, he knew he was having heart problems, but he didn't go to the doctor. He was monitoring it. That's what we found was on the he was doing running on the, I forgot what the thing's called, but and he was charting his heart, and he knew he was having a problem, but didn't go to the doctor. And so I use that as an example, because I say to my husband, like, your father knew. Like, you have to understand what the signs are of heart.
Right.
It's the same thing for mental. You have to recognize those things and be willing to go to the doctor and understand that it's normal. Everyone goes through these things in their lives. I mean, just on this call, I have had thoughts of suicide whenever I was little. I know Kate has had thoughts of suicide previously and has dealt with that. I don't know about you, whether you had thoughts of suicide, but I want people within our audience to understand that this is normal. Everyone goes through bouts of things that they may have dealt with. And so I want everyone to know that no matter whether you're female or male or anything, these are things that everyone goes through. So I'm curious, what can we do as an industry, one, to help the construction industry, and then two, what can we do just to help overall for people that might be listening in?
Yeah. And we're beginning to do this process, and thank you for like putting this on a platform that's getting out to people. Like, you're doing the work. I want you to know that you're a part of what the solution, and that is like just for me, and that's just for me. But when we as a just a single person admit our problems and be like, I look in the mirror, and the only time you can see yourself in live form is when you look in a mirror, and you can say, you can then be like, I have like your father, I have an EKG issue, that it's not normal. I have to now identify that not normal thing, that symptom or whatever it is, that it's not normal and it's contributing negatively to my life, and I have to accept that. It's really hard, because when you start accepting things, it's like now the reality of the situation becomes incredibly clear. It's like accepting that you have a lot of credit card debt.
Denial so much easier.
Yes, it's so powerful. Our brains are supercomputers. They trick the body. But once you acknowledge that, one, I have a problem, and two, it's a negative. It's impacting my life negatively. I can now be like, I can either start to add positive behavior, being like, I'm going to put the bottle of Jim Beam away or whatever it is. I can start to change, but I can't change until, number one, I can see my own issue, and two, admit that issue is a problem, and then begin to take positive steps to change. And that means going to a doctor, seeing a cardiologist, seeing a psychologist, seeing a psychotherapist, taking medicine. Like, it's a long road that you have to then go down, but going down that new path every day that you wake up, you're no longer negative. You're in the positive territory every single day. And even if you slip up a little bit, you don't slip back to where you were. You just keep picking yourself up and going. So as man in construction, as a male, I can be a leader. I can be strong. I can be courageous. I can be independent. I can look weird. I could be, hey, Thomas, you're not the normal. And that, you know what? Now, for me to show up as me and have the presence that I do, and that, hey, yeah, he's a little weird. He wants to talk about the stuff that nobody wants to talk about, that over there where we screwed up. But then being assertive, being like, that right there, we're not doing that anymore, and we're going to take positive steps forward. And then if we do that in small groups, so let's just say the people who you work with, your crew, if you're a foreman, say you have 3 carpenters you work with, like have a conversation about it and try to be really not silly about it. Try to make it the serious, because here's the thing. The company I work for, the math is very easy to do. It's 10,000 people. That's almost 5 people a year just within our organization. If you follow the statistics, will die by suicide, and that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. And then it's 5 people. I probably know 5 people that I could go have a conversation with, and if they're having a acute, or even they're hiding their mental wellness, we have to recognize that as leaders and get them to seek help. We almost have to be like, we have to like be like not just like, hey, here's the door, go in there. No, like, we have to like, if you need someone to go with you, I will go with you. I will drive you there, or I'm going to call 911 if it's a serious event, and not even be worried about the repercussions on the back end. I think when we do that more often, and we have really serious conversation, and we have a conversation about burnout, and it's not just like, oh man, I've been working for 21 days straight. Like, no, it's not acceptable. We have to overcome it. And the only way we overcome it is beginning to identify those negative factors, and then take steps to improve every single day. And that's many people are like me, and we are a growing cohort of change agents in the construction industry. And I think if we keep growing and keep doing this, we will we'll fix this problem. One day at a time.
I'm going to pull up a couple comments. So this one I really loved. So Jennifer said, we have to shift the mindsets to understand our projects are made up of people, and those people are the most important than the outcomes they produce. And I think that really boils down to anything in life, is that there are people that are behind anything that we talk about negatively about, or things that, people are the things that are the most important things when it comes to especially professional services industry, because without our people, those we won't be able to produce anything. So it ultimately is a trickle down. If our people aren't happy, if our people aren't healthy, then that ends up trickling down, and then the production is basically a moot point, because if you don't have those individuals and you're not putting them first in what it is that you're doing, then ultimately your business isn't really going to flourish either, because you're really not putting everybody first. And I think that's an important point.
Yeah, that's incredibly important.
Yeah, I think it is too. And as I've been listening to you, Thomas, today, there are so many areas that you're already broaching around this, right? So, you're talking about transparency, you're talking about awareness, and having difficult conversations. And that is quality, right? Like, so you take a look, at something, and you can quantify it, or you can look at it with a quality approach. And so you're looking at, all of these very, concrete things that are being done by humans that don't have concrete foundations that they're working with, right? So it's about all these humans that are doing these projects, and we have to care about their health, right? Whether it's their mental health or their physical health. But what's behind the mental health stuff that we aren't talking about, just like what Pfizer did with the erectile dysfunction, right? Mm-hmm. What's behind that is a whole shit ton of shame, right? Mm-hmm. That's the fucking problem, is that we're ashamed to want to die. We're ashamed to want to hide. We're ashamed, and the shame is what's causing us to do all of those things.
We're shamed to be weak. We're shamed to be, all the things of what other people might project because they are still dealing with all of their bullshit of trauma that maybe they haven't dealt with in their lives. Right. So I love this. I love this path.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Even
to me,
go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
no.
I
was
was
just going to say,
you triggered me. The safety
preach. I
vests,
want to hear.
the safety vests. If you look at the safety vests that are designed for women, they're like the hourglass shape. I don't know if you like do a Google search. And
Yeah.
I can only empathize because my vest fits perfectly because it's square body just like me, but
Right.
We're talking about mental, factors that apply, and a lot of women were like, we need to wear very boxy, loose fitting clothes and look and try to like take our, and I'm not talking about the people in the trailer. I'm talking about those women who work in the field in the trades, and they have to have they can't wear a lot of makeup. They're trying to almost like take away a lot of their gender characteristics to fit in. And this is conversations we had with some women out there, and I'm like, that has to weigh on you, that you can't be yourself. And then if you're not conforming to this skull guard, ultimate carpenter image, that you're somehow less than, and that it applies to men, no doubt, but it certainly has to apply to women as well. So it's like we have to embrace that. If you have individual characteristic, that it's okay. If you have wavy hair and it sticks out of your hard hat, great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're doing the work right now. You're executing it. You're at the ground level, and at the very high 800 feet of beam level, I'm sure. But you're there. You're doing the work. And we just need more of you, right? We need more of us to be aware of this, because we didn't have, like, Pfizer was able to take a group, take a bunch of smart people, set them in the room and say, okay, let's look at the process of men's penises not working how they want. Now, let's decide how are we going to talk about this in a way that isn't going to freak them all out too much.
Right.
How can we connect all the dots? How can we make them feel good about it and safe about it? And they had all sorts of dollars to put into that, right? All sorts of intelligence and money to pour into that.
But they had had a very diverse group. That they've got marketing firms that came in. They had psychologists that came in. It was like, we have to look at, okay. So it's like
all angles.
So my thing about construction industry, if we're only having conversations about mental health, and it's like the only people who are having the conversations are the people who also work with you.
Right.
It was not enough. We have to bring in psychologists. We have to bring in trained professionals in the medical industry. And spoiler alert, we build hospitals like crazy. I work for a company, Jennifer Lacey. We're probably competing over a hospital right now, by the way. That these industries, we work with Pfizer, right? So like, these are not like so impossible problems that we can't overcome. We know people, and so like what you were saying, Kate, of like they brought in all of these different people, we can do that as well. And then when we figure out that system that's super punishing, say, you know what, this thing right here, this is a super punishing system. We've already identified many of them. But a super punishing system that's not good for human beings, that it's super unhealthy, that it's no longer okay to hide the statistics or whatever it is, that if like we bring that surface to life, that this actual operation of drilling overhead, it rains down silica dust in your face, and also it's like you put your arm over your heart all day. It's a super unhealthy thing. And that we can now design a robot to do that same behavior, and that robot is not taking away somebody's job. That robot is making somebody's life that used to have to do that work really injurious on their body. Yeah. So like designing that robot took all kinds of scientists and mechanical engineers and electricians to build it. So like we can do it. And it's like, there's not a panacea. Right? There's no chat GPT that'll fix mental wellness, but we have to do something every single day, each one of us. And I think that'll be that's the start of it. We've already begun, and now we just need to continue.
Yeah. And I think just having the conversation is the most important thing, because when people see other people talking about it. So I'm curious, in your industry, do you have people that come in and literally just sit down and present to people and say, here's something I dealt with and where I am now? So here's where I was and here's where I am now, because without having an illustration or someone that is exemplifying the fact that they got over it and they are stronger now for dealing with it, or even in the moment, if people don't see other people and the struggles that they went through and where it is they are today, if it's still being hidden, then there's no solving it. There's nothing representing it. Just like with the Pfizer story, the reason that they became more comfortable is they were showing it, they were demonstrating, they were exemplifying, this is okay to talk about.
Right. There's all sorts of models out there too, so like we can look at the Pfizer model, and I think that's an awesome one because it's just such a great example, right? Because it's so in your face, and we all experienced it. We all know, like my kids probably know what erectile dysfunction is. They've at least seen the commercials. It involves a man and a woman holding hands, and the man looks a lot happier. Like that's their vision of that. But if you if we look at other public health concerns, right, that we've recently just experienced, like COVID, right, like publicly we were able to fairly fast spread the word that this is a huge issue and you've got to start putting masks on, you've got to start doing these things, right? And they did it everywhere. It wasn't just when you went to the doctor, it was also when you were at the grocery store, when you were everywhere, the information was there in your face. How cool would it be if not only were you able, Thomas, to spread this message with your teams and the people, that worked with you were doing that with their individual teams, but then, they go to the doctor, and the doctor specifically asks them questions around their industry, because they know what the risk is in construction. Or maybe there's the bar down the street where people are, coping in ways they shouldn't, or are the conversations being had there, right? That's what we did with COVID. We had the conversations everywhere because it was a problem. People were dying, so we had to attack it.
That's right. And you had to kind of give up a little of your privacy. You had to share a medical test to get on an airplane. And yes, it is super unfortunate that does that get into all of your personal, privacy freedoms? Yes. Right. And we need to protect those. But think about the greater good that we had a very, very contagious virus, and that led to a disease that was highly, highly lethal. And that's the reason why we had to give the tests and wear all of the PPE was for the greater good. And it wasn't about you. The mask wasn't keeping the germs from going in. It was keeping your germs from going out. And that was hard to grasp, very hard to grasp. And that's that was very here and now. In construction, we have kind of leveled out for workplace fatalities. So it's about 1,800 people a year still die on the job from falls or other injuries, serious. But we have all kinds of personnel and procedures, and there's all kinds of technology, and there's all kinds of devices now that you can use to work more safely. And the construction industry has improved vastly over the last 2 decades, including having an act of Congress, the OSHA, right, from the Nixon administration. And now it's law is super normal. If you go on a construction job site, you wear a hard hat. Or it might even be an iconic hard hat, but you also, if you get towards an edge, that you're more likely or possibly required. In the United States, you're required by law to protect edges. And so that's all good. And so those things have been normalized. And each one of those procedures are probably written because of a previous incident that happened. So I think we could just continue this effort that it's not about a pain in the butt, or it's not because it makes the schedule go longer. It's really about, hey, we have a serious crisis on our hands, and it's dealing with all of this work and all of the stress and all of it. It's like, it's not one thing, it's all compounding. But it's like, if we need to start working differently, and if working differently is considered risky behavior, or it's considered not normal, that we have to get past that as an industry. Yeah. And that's really hard. So how do you do it? We start seeing ourselves from individuals, and you can control your own thoughts and your own behaviors. And then if you're in a leadership position like me, you can now influence others in your own small work group, or even in a region that, like I work in. So now we can influence many more people, and then it's like a multiplying effect, and it's not just 1 + 1 = 2. It's like 1 + 1 to the exponential of how many people doing the improvement. So it's a fancy word. It's called emergence, but we have to do that. And if we actually do that, we're all better. We're all so much better. And it's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. Everybody wins. The work actually gets less complicated, less complex. So if the work is less complex, then we can be super predictable. And then when we're super predictable, we can be so productive. And then when we're super productive, we can lower our overuse, like rework, or just having too many people. Like, you can lower your requirements to have a whole bunch of labor on the project, so we can make our jobs less expensive. So it's like, who doesn't want to do this? But to go down that road, we have to first, like I was saying, you have to accept that there are problems, and those problems lead to negative consequences.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a friend, it's not showing up, but I'm pretty sure this is Carmen. I was having a conversation with her previously as well, but she said she has a conversation every day with her guys, and she asks them all kinds of questions and lets them know that she's here if they need her. And I think that ultimately is a lot of it. It's being there and saying, hey, I'm here. And I know that it's a hard conversation, because I know with her, a lot of times they're like, like, why are you bugging me about all of this, protocol stuff? And, like, stop, why are we doing all this safety things? But it's ultimately the answer is because you're a person and because I care about you.
Yeah.
And that ultimately, whenever we start breaking it down and just focusing on that point, that's what's most important for them to understand, is because we care about you. We want you to be here tomorrow. We want you to be able to do what you're doing today, tomorrow, and the next day. That's ultimately why these safety things are in place, and why it is people have the people like you in quality, is because ultimately they care about the people that are working for them. So
Yeah.
I love that they're focusing on that type of position.
And it also models behavior. So just by asking, are you okay? Like, that models to them, shit, sometimes I'm not okay. Like, I get that you might not be okay, because I'm not okay sometimes, and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
So, but just like you, Thomas, getting vulnerable and telling people, like, I used to have to go in a hallway somewhere and panic by myself, because I was so ashamed, and I was having a physical reaction that I could not control. Are there any of you out there that are having that? Like, does that happen to you because it's happening to me, or it happened to me? So it's like the people, like, the Myra, that are there, that are asking the questions, and they're also then in turn modeling, that it's not, I'm not just asking because I care. I'm asking because I'm you too. We're all one. We all have our shit.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point. And if you have that conversation, I've had it on a job site, and guess what? I'm almost never the only one that has some kind of, like, either personal issue or something happening at home.
Right.
And if you kind of just lower the stigma a little bit, you start to see people for who they are and who they are, human beings. Yeah.
Thomas, any final thoughts before we get to our final question?
I tell the story a lot. It's a book called The Goal. And in that, I'll briefly summarize it, but I was thinking yesterday, since Sarah, you and I just recently got on an airplane, but the chapters in The Goal is a Boy Scout, and he's on a hike, and the Boy Scout was like super overburdened with a bunch of stuff in his backpack, and they were blaming that Boy Scout for this. The other Boy Scouts were blaming that Boy Scout for the source of their own delay. Like, it's because of this guy who's overweight and overburdened that I'm somehow being delayed, and therefore it's the blaming is happening. But instead of telling that story, have you ever, and I'll just say it, like, have you ever tried to get on one airline to another, like try to make a connecting flight, and that you're in the row 20, and it's like you got 5 minutes to get to plane on the other freaking side of the airport? The airlines, they run in a very predictive system, right? And they're like, if you're just a person in that system, but if you are delayed and you get stuck behind people, and those people, they got like 25 bags that one person opened it, and they're like taking all kinds of crazy time, you can't get past that person. And then also you miss your next flight. But here's the thing, the only person that's punished in that situation, even though you probably could have gotten off that plane and gotten onto the next plane, the only person that's punished in that situation is you. The human, like the airline, they got paid, you paid for your plane ticket, and all the other people either got on their plane or they also missed it or whatever. But the only people that are punished was you. But I was thinking about this last night. If they held that plane just for me, the people who are being punished are the people that got on the other plane on time, and so they might be delayed. So it's like, this is a super punishing system, that it's not about the airlines, it's not about the airport, it's not about design, it's not even about human behavior. It's just a system that's super punishing for a human being. And there's all kinds of consequences that come out of missing air flights, right? Because you miss super important things at home, or you miss an important meeting for your business. But again, the only person that's punished is you. So I have to think about that we have to think about these systems and how they're designed. And if the system is designed in a way where the benefit is always entity or a company, or there's a profitability thing, and the only negative consequences to some kind of problem, the only negative consequences is a human being, and that human being is somehow punished, or somehow physically constrained, or they're delayed or something like that. And we need to actually change that system. It's really hard in the airline industry. I'm not going to go down that road, but if we're
tackling a tough industry,
right? But if we're actually designing our work on a job site, or even designing a building, like if you're an architect, you have to think about those things, and think about those things very consciously. And then also notice, like, you have to also go out and observe, are human beings being punished in the system that I designed? And if the answer is yes, then your beautiful plan that you have animations, you might have had to get it approved by a board, that plan is somehow flawed, and that we have to fix it. And when we fix that plan because it's better off for human beings, that's how we will change an industry. And I get to do that every single day now. So I'm happy to say that, and that's how I want to go out. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, well, normally we end with, talk about a gift or a talent. In in some way how you're giving back to the universe. And I know you already are just by joining us, but I know that there's something else you wanted to also add to the end of this conversation on how you might also continue to give back.
Yeah, definitely keep coming. I will, keep coming to this. I will show up regularly. So if everybody who's listening, I will try to, maybe not every single time, but I'll try to regularly join this platform, at least on the chat. And then I have been making my ways around the internet omniverse. So there's all kinds of platforms where you can see me, but also the people who are on those, like run those platforms, check them out. Jennifer, the No BS Tribe, Elevate Construction. I mean, the list goes on and on. But go and listen to those people. And that when you listen and then you do some self-reflection, then you can go and take that forward better than listening to some other podcast where it's like disinformation, or it's just like just not great information, or it's just it's not adding value. Try to change the ratio. And then the other one is I do have a couple books I'm working on, and I'm just not getting after it enough. But I am working on one with Brian Winningham. That will be really, we're really excited to get that one going if we can like ever get it done. But and then another one, it's kind of the goal with Goldratt, but it's written similarly, but about construction. So I have a theory of constraints book that will be coming out probably in a year or so. But look for those. Yeah. So maybe I'll have to come back and do the rounds when that's actually out.
Well,
so hopefully you'll have me.
Yeah, we look forward to that. And Thomas, if people want to connect with you, would they do that through LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, 100%. And my claim to fame, the LinkedIn headquarters in San Francisco, I was a project superintendent. So I have, my contribution to LinkedIn is very physical, but 222 2nd Street.
In the walls.
LinkedIn, definitely hit me up. I'm right there. Just look me up, Thomas LaMay, DPR Construction.
Great.
And,
I'm just going to end with a couple of things that people have said, by the way. And so Dan just said he appreciated you opening up. He also liked that you were talking about how you figured out how to deal with these issues. And then also Renee said, Thomas, we need more people like you in the world. And so I agree. And so thank you so much for joining us today and talking about a tough topic. And I appreciate you being vulnerable with us, for one, and sharing your insight about yourself, but also just giving us a little bit more insight into the construction industry and some of the things that are going on and how you guys are helping men that may be needing assistance, that need help, and bringing light to this topic.
You got it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really enjoyed this conversation today.
Perfect.
Can't wait to read your books. They're going to be great.
I gotta get to work for sure. Well, thank you. That gives me a light to get under my butt and get going. Yeah.
Yes, it's needed.
Kate, you want to end us?
Yes, I do. Well, okay. If you could very quickly, Thomas, I know we're on our way out, but if there was anything you could tell your 20-year-old self, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Real quickly, when I was working through this, one of my coaches was like, Thomas, you're a stallion. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm a stallion. And they're like, you need to be an eagle. And I was like, I like the eagle even better. But if you think about it, a stallion, it just goes, right? It's trained to just run as fast as it can, as hard as it can until it collapses. But an eagle, oh no, it's trained and it has really good vision. And for the longest time, I was from birth, I was just a trained stallion. And everybody was always, being like, you need to compete, you need to go, you need to get after, you need to be productive.
Go. Yeah.
And it wasn't until I realized that being an eagle, you got to get up high, you got to have good vision, you got to have skill.
You got to know when to dip down.
Yes. Yeah. There's all kinds of things there. So man, I love me some eagles. So My thing is like, go tell that story to 20-year-old meathead Thomas at the University of Nebraska. But that would have been a kind of life-changing. I definitely had that change about 20 years later. So
great.
I'll definitely do that.
I love that.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, for that visual. Yeah. And so, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go ahead.
I hope our audience.
Go ahead,
yeah,
Kate.
Go out to, let this fuel your Friday. Go be an eagle, There's a place in the world for all the stallions, but we can rise above and be even more strategic if we embody the eagle. So fuel your Friday, go kick its ass, have a great weekend. And then, let's continue to be the eagle.
Thank you, everyone.
It's awesome.
Thank you. Take care.